Guys, last time we were in Needham, we were showing you the blue board and plaster on the inside of this home and getting everything prepped. Well, inside the plaster is done and the beams are going up and we got the big trusses being fabricated right now. You can see the guys behind me loading them into the home. Today I want to focus on the exterior of the home and share some of the details that Steve and his team over at Teak Design have incorporated on the design of this home and of course what we've executed. So standing in the motor court here, we have our single car garage and our 2-car garage. One of the first things you're going to notice is the elliptical archways above the garage door. I say elliptical archway because they're a little bit more of a squished down arch, where a traditional arch would be this consistent arch all the way across the top of the garage door. Garage doors are custom built by Designer Garage Doors. Share a little bit more about that process and how you go about ordering custom doors in a future episode. Behind me, you actually have the side entry of the home. And that entry door right there, I want to call attention to, right now it's open because we're loading in some beams, but most of the time it's actually closed, and the team does a great job about protecting that door. There's actually a piece of plywood that gets covered along that entire door, and if you look at the garage doors, and you might be asking, well, why is there plastic in front of it? Same reason. We're protecting these doors. They're completely finished. They're in their final condition. There's dirt on the ground, there's mud on the ground, there's work going on, and Mike wanted to drape plastic to make sure that that mud and dirt doesn't get kicked up on these garage doors because they are final painted. For us, in our budget, we're always going to have a site protection allowance. And this is exactly what this is for. It's for things like plastic, it's for things like additional plywood, it's for the labor to install this stuff to make sure that as these finishes are being installed that we're protecting them for its final use. The last thing we want to do is build a home and then have it look as though it's been worn and torn through the last few months of construction. So site protection is really important to us. I want to walk you through kind of what we got going on. So we'll go over to this corner of the garage. Starting from the bottom, we have our water table. So we have this 1x8 right here, and then we have this 2.5-inch piece of board. It's actually 5/4 stock and it's on a slight angle. So as rain sheds down the siding, it's going to hit this and it's going to roll out onto the ground. And then of course we have our rain leaders coming down and they'll be tying into our drainage system. From an exterior perspective, you have your water table, and then this right here, a lot of you guys have asked, this is a double dipped, pre-stained white cedar shingle. So that means it's been coated on all 6 sides, right, left, top, bottom, front, back, and it's been coated twice by the factory. These are made by Maybach. Everything that you're going to see on this house that is currently white, such as the water table, such as the trim around the garage door, is actually not going to stay white. This home will get a darker, moodier gray tone for all of the trim. You're going to see a mix of materials. You're going to see some stuff that's PVC, some of the stuff that's wood, and then some of the stuff that is boral fly ash. So if I walk down the garage here, I'm going to point out a window, and this window has a historic sill, and this material right here is actually a PVC material. So it's pre-manufactured. This little line underneath here, this is called a kerf. That's going to allow the water to come down, and rather than have water tension that can go back and get behind the siding, it actually breaks that water tension and has the water drop down. But the reason that we made this PVC is because this is where most of the water impact and the most of the abuse with window trim is going to be. As far as the design of the exterior trim, again, this is going to be a darker, moodier gray, but we have just a simple 1x4 stock all the way around, and then of course our head flashing. A very simple window casing, not a lot of detail on that. That is the intent behind the design. So if we work back out to the front and we start working our way up, you're gonna see these light blocks. So a couple of things with the light blocks. Number one, they look awfully large right now. Number one, they're not gonna stay white. They are gonna be that darker, moodier gray. And number two, these are surface mounted lights. So they're gonna sit against that and they're really tall. So you have your wiring coming out in the middle, and that will be essentially right where that light's gonna be, and it's gonna cover most of that block. Now, as you work your way around, you might be difficult to see here, but the garage door trim, that trim was bent all the way around for that elliptical arch, and the exterior guys did a really great job actually bending some LED flashing for that drip cap, and that's all hand bent. As you work your way all the way up, a couple things. The rafters, oftentimes you're gonna see the rafters plumb cut. Plumb cut means that they're gonna be perfectly plumb straight up and down when that rafter comes and has that overhang. So your fascia board is gonna be straight, basically plumb. Level is horizontal, plumb is vertical. These are considered square cut rafters, meaning that the rafter comes down and it's just a 90-degree angle from the side of the rafter up. So you can see that fascia is actually kicked on an angle because it is at 90 degrees. Underneath, we have PVC, a Versatex product, which is a vented soffit material that gives the ventilation for our rain screen that goes from here all the way up behind our siding and out through the top. That's really important because if you do have a rain screen, you do kind of want that stack effect where airflow can make its way up and out, almost just as important as water making its way from the top and down and out. All of the fascia and the rakes, the rake is that 1x material that's running up the side of the roof as it makes its way up to the ridge of the roof. All of that material is a fly ash, a boral true exterior product. The reason that we decided to use that product is because that's, you know, a material that we do not want to have to replace. So we spent a little bit more of our exterior budget in that area to make sure that that was an area that got installed and stayed there and did not require maintenance long term. It will also be painted that dark gray. Now underneath we have these, what are called out on the drawings as wall brackets. And these are just an architectural element that Steve and his team designed. Have these wall brackets that tie into all of our exterior corners where our shingles are. Again, all of this is going to be painted, but these are the small elements that really make this home really beautiful. As you approach the home and you look around, there's a lot of things to really appreciate and enjoy. Now, some of you guys might be asking, well, what are you guys gonna be doing for gutters with those square cut fascia? The gutter will actually be a half round material, and there'll be a bracket that attaches to that fascia, and it has an adjustable bracket that allows that gutter to be swung in any direction. Those brackets and those gutters will go on after we get the exterior painted. That's really gonna be our next step. Why don't we head around back and we'll talk a little bit about some of the details on the back elevation. We talk about the white cedar shingles on this home. There's a couple different siding choices or facade choices. We have the brick that you guys have seen on the front of this home. We have that on the front gables. We also have some half wall scenarios. I'm gonna pause right here because this is the beautiful blue the team has selected, and you can see the quality finish that they've done off-site. We've actually sent this to our paint shop to have it done in their shop rather than doing it on site. And then we have, of course, our sill protectors. And if this door was in an area that would have a lot of traffic, then we would have this completely boarded up. But fortunately, there's not a lot of traffic here, and the hardware is left off, and it gives you a sneak peek at it. But if you come this way, you're gonna see this door too. This is a Dutch door. So a Dutch door meaning that the top can actually open separately from the bottom, or you can open it as one unit. And this is right off the mudroom, just a really beautiful detail. And then of course our wood threshold, again, really traditional American detail, which is really nice looking. I do want to call attention to this window here because as I'm looking, this is an important detail not to overlook. I talk about how the trim is not going to remain white. The exterior guys actually took a paintbrush and painted the side of this trim. If they did not, and they ran the shingles tight and this was all white, when we came back to paint this dark gray, and then we'd have to cut in every line with a shingle, what would happen is as this stuff shrunk, you'd have this white line in there. So when you're thinking about doing exterior trim on your home, try to get the trim installed and paint the side of that trim prior to doing siding. That way you don't have an unsightly line. Now with clapboard siding or something like that, you may have a caulk line, but on shingle siding you certainly don't. So you have to consider that in the expansion and contraction of the siding material. As we make our way around, we have this beautiful reclaimed brick again, and here's where you're starting to be introduced to the nickel gap. It is made by Duration. It is a fly ash boral true exterior product, and the reason we actually ended up with that product, we wanted something that was going to last a long time, and it also communicates with the roof. Water infiltration can really ruin siding really quickly. As water rushes down the roof and gets into the end grain of wood, you're not going to have that issue with the true exterior product. We're gonna step away from the heater. Despite me being in a t-shirt, it's still quite cold inside. As we work our way this way, dining room, this was done primarily with PVC. Again, you have the windowsills, all PVC because of abuse that those windowsills are gonna take. And then the outside corners, we just wanted something really stable. Again, this will be painted a gray color. We loop all the way around. This is what I was talking about where it intercepts or interacts with the roof. So that this roof here, which is above the homework loft, there's gonna be a lot of water and snow running down there, and we do not want the end grain of what could be wood to suck up moisture and then essentially ruin that whole first 12 inches, which eventually would ruin the entire siding. This is why we use that true exterior product. The benefit of it is very stable. It's, you know, it's not gonna be damaged by water. We have our traditional nailing pattern, and when we paint it, it's going to look just like wood. Again, you can kind of see some of the brick interacting with the other different siding materials. Really great detail. I want to point out, from a design perspective, this roof gets awfully close to that window. We actually sat down and chatted about that with the design team as well as our carpenters on site. They've actually flashed with LED right against that casing and up behind all that siding. So essentially, you know, a kick out flashing, but a custom piece that brings that water away from that window to make sure that we don't have premature rotting. And this is where you start to see some of the paneling detail, which is similar to what you see on the front of the house. You can see up top, we have the Boral True exterior, then we have some PVC trim, wood trim, PVC sills, and then our brick at the very bottom. And then they've used exterior MDO panels for the panel itself, and all of that will be painted one cohesive color. Why am I talking about this? Why do we use all these different materials, and why is it important to communicate that? This is where we support the autonomy of our site supers and our team on site. There is so many factors that go into building a great home. We do have a budget that we're working with. We're dealing with material availability, and we're also dealing with what makes sense in the right scenario. Do we need to use a product that has to be super moisture resistant when it might be tucked up underneath the soffit and see very little moisture? Or could we offset by using something that's a little less expensive up there, that's going to be painted and last just as long, and use that savings to upgrade another material that might see premature wear and tear? And of course, lean on our design team and everyone that's involved to make sure that we're doing the right thing and work with our vendors as well. As we loop around, you know, we're seeing a lot of the same details, but we'll take the time to kind of work our way out back to the front of the home. So we have a lot of the same materials, nickel gap here, and then this is where we reintroduce these brick facades on the two front gables. This is really what is left as far as exterior work. Mike has held this back for a couple of reasons. We wanted to make sure that it was well insulated, well air sealed, and this is going to be where we first introduce V-groove ceiling, which you see in the kitchen and other areas throughout the interior of the home. This is where you start really introducing the synonymous materials from exterior to interior. While I'm standing out front, I'm just thinking of a couple things that you guys might have questions on that I would like to address. Number one, you know, hose bibs always come up. Mike's actually done a good job. He's got them all installed in our water table. Rather than being in a random spot on the siding, you're centered down here in the water table. That is done intentionally. You're gonna see vents and things like kitchen vents, bathroom vents, anything that we may have skipped over in the video. A lot of it's temporary right now, but what they'll do is they'll actually course that. When I mean by course is if it's coming out here, they're gonna adjust it to make sure it's coursed in a shingle itself. So again, it looks intentional, even if it's on the back of the home. Those are the things that really matter to us. And when we're thinking about final grade and landscape, which we're going to get into here in the next couple weeks, this is really designed to be kind of your bury point. And we have some steel angle iron that was installed just for some additional support. This 2x will obviously go away, but essentially our grade will just bury that steel support. And this is going to be our mulch layer. You know, you have your weep points right here, so any moisture that's making its way behind the rain screen can weep out. This is really going to be where your grade is at, so you can see how much we have to fill. So that was really key to make sure that we knew what was going to be here in the final condition, and with the landscape architect to be sure that this was coursed correctly. Finally, we have our front entryway that's been buried for the last couple of weeks while the masons were here. Right now we have a slab on grade. There's no basement below here, and this is actually prepped, and we'll get a bluestone patio paver, which will work down into the steps and out to the sidewalk. And then we'll actually have some bluestone on the inside of the home, which will again tie the exterior to the interior. But one of the things I really like, and how I want to kind of finish this video, I love the fact that the center of the home, you're looking at what is the future breakfast nook, these 3 windows, and then you have your main entry on the left, and then you have a separate entry to that 1-car garage on the right. You can see that beautiful blue door, and then the entry door going into the main home we're waiting on finish right now, so that will be in a couple weeks. So big shout out to Boston Exteriors for executing all of the work on the exterior. Of course, our team for overseeing that and being a support carpentry force. The masons for doing such a great job on the masonry, and all of our vendors that have been a part of this to get the exterior to where it is today. It's beautiful weather, so I'm excited to see some paint fly and share what this home looks like in its final condition.